Welcome to Humble Ground, a podcast where the heart of agriculture meets the stories that feed the world. Behind every meal is a farmer, a rancher, and a legacy of hard work. Here, we shine a light on their journeys, their challenges, and their triumphs, because every meal has a story, and it's time we heard it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Humble Ground. Pretty excited about this one. Our buddy Andy Evans, who was in the first episode, lined us up with another great one. So I can't thank Jay enough. I know they have a million things going on, so it's awesome to see that they would take the time and talk about their operation, which is incredible. The biggest thing you can do to support us is go out and share this with your friends. We've got a guy in Tennessee that's going to be on the show soon. They've got a podcast called Talk Dirt to Me, which is a great name. But Logan, their podcast is incredible. They've been doing it about 5 years, and they've got about 1,000 or 2,000 reviews. And so if you get a second, pause this, go leave us a review, good, bad, or otherwise. But without further ado, Jay, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I know you guys have a lot going on.
Well, that's not a problem, and thank you for coming down today and enjoy visiting with you. So
yeah, give me a little bit of history. When did this start out?
Well, my brother and myself are kind of the third generation. My granddad moved north of here in 1930, in the mid-30s. He moved up from Emmett and moved up here, and then my dad and him farmed together. Kind of nothing formal. Mom and Dad were married in 1960. Anyway, they just kind of farmed along, and then, life just kind of went on. And my brother graduated from college in 1983 out of K-State. I graduated out in 1986 from K-State. And so at that time, we formed a partnership with Dad and Mom, and we started the operation as it kind of started out today. At that time, our operation consists of a farrow to finish, row crop, cow-calf, backgrounding, stocker operation, feedlot. At that time, it was more focused on hogs and some farming. We had, maybe 100 cows and probably, maybe about 200 or 300 head of calves a year. It wasn't too much. But now we're kind of steady on the cattle industry. That was always my passion, and so we went that way. And my brother, he took care of the hogs and the row crops. I took care of the cattle and the hay ground, and we just started going. Like I say, the 1980s was a tough time in agriculture, and everybody told you, don't come back to the farm, go get a job in town, but my brother and me, we wanted to farm. We weren't scared. We were farming in high school, that's all we ever did. And so my dad was a pretty forward-thinking guy, and after the partnership in 86, in 1988, he said, we're going to buy this ranch right here next to us. And it was 1,500 acres, and I thought Dad was crazy, but you didn't, Dad said do it, so you just did it. And that kind of got us thrown into buying land, and we've kind of been buying land ever since. But it's been very good to us, been very, very blessed. Our families now, my two boys have bought back into the operation when they got out of college. Lance's two of his kids have bought back into the operation when they got out of college. And so now we have a multi-generation diversity going on here, and so it's a pretty family operation. My son-in-law actually manages one of our ranches over by Oldsburg, where my wife grew up, and my sister actually still does most of our books and everything. So that's kind of, and we got a dedicated team of employees, so we just get up and go to work every day.
No, it's awesome. That's a perfect introduction into what you all do, because there's a lot. Realistically, it's cool to see the multi-generational and still the family's still so involved and intertwined, and everybody's kind of got their thing that they really enjoy. And as you were talking about, and it just works. What was it like growing up? is that something that from an early age you got thrown into helping Dad and Grandpa on the farm?
Yeah, I remember walking Milo with a kitchen knife, cutting cane. Yeah, we just that's all we ever did. I told people, said playing ball. I honestly thought growing up, ball was only for the kids in town, because everybody in my class that grew up with me, any of us farm boys, we worked all summer. We didn't have time to go play ball in town. We didn't know that was an option in life growing up. And so, no, we've kind of lived and breathed it, and it's been good. I don't know. It was the only thing we ever really wanted to do. And like I say, with our different interests, it's worked well. We don't have a lot of family feuds here, arguing about what kind of corn we're going to plant or what kind of bulls we're going to buy, because my brother, he never asked me what kind of corn. I never asked him what kind of corn he was going to plant, and he never asked me what kind of bulls we were buying. And so it's worked very well. And the other thing and that I didn't mention, my dad, which he passed in 2010, but he was a state representative for 12 years. So through the 80s and stuff, he was in Topeka. He was at the legislature for 90 days, and we didn't have cell phones then. So Dad would call us at noon. We would be in the office because Dad was going to call at 12 o'clock to see what was going on. But my brother and me, at that time, we had, I think, one employee, and my brother and me made all the calls. We had to talk to the feed salesman. We had to figure out what we was going to do because Dad wasn't here. So that let us grow and expand into things. So now, as the kids are back, I do not want to get into politics. So we have, like in our operation, my one son takes care of the feedlot. The other son does more of the cow-calf end of it. And that way, they're not stepping on each other's toes either. We all sit down and talk about things, but when it comes down, they decide which way we're going to go on those areas.
It's neat. So the last podcast I had was with Keith from Will Roads, which is down Dodge City, and then he also has a feedlot in Texas. And he's taken the approach of his kids are coming back out of college. I think they're Texas A&M grads. They're coming back out of college, and he wants them to kind of start taking charge, right? He doesn't want them to wait till they're, till somebody passes away to take charge. So it sounds like you're allowing the next generation to start making some decisions and leading things. Is that safe to say?
Oh, that's very safe. Now, I don't know. I think I've done an excellent job. Now, I'm not going to say my boys think I've done quite an excellent job, but I really do that. They decide a lot more. We sat down in the morning, kind of talk about what we think we ought to get done, but yeah, they take care of things. They're taking care of what bulls we're going to go buy, and they take care of what feed we're going to go feed. And yeah, they call the salesman, they call this, and, they call me, and I go get parts for them and stuff. So no, it's working, I think, fairly well right now. Yes. And like I say, with, the intertwined of everybody going, you have to keep the circle just running smoothly, or try to keep it running smoothly. And I said, you always start out with a plan A, B, and C, and usually something blows up. So you skip A and B and go straight to C, because you never know how the day's going to go.
No, but it's awesome. I think there's so many operations out there that wait until Grandpa passes away. And then I feel like you never give the chance to the next generation to, I think you just have such different ways of thinking. You have different ideas. Not saying they're all great ideas, but to say, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? Rather than a lot of places are like, nope, it's my way or the highway. When you're 60, you can take over.
Yeah, that honestly does surprise me. And I've seen that. But, we're not going to live forever. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And so if you haven't raised your kids by the time they're 30 that can run your place, you really need to think about what kind of manager you are and what you're thinking about going down the roads. The place we're sitting in right now is a new feedlot. It was the boys. Our old feedlot was we still use it, of course, every day, but I built it from 93 to 97. And we've outgrown it. We didn't have a big enough break room for the employees. We didn't have a nicer office. And the boys said, we're going to build a feedlot. So I said, well, okay, here's where I think we ought to build it. And they all thought that was a good idea. So then they started getting plans, and we started getting things worked around. And, but that's the younger generation. They're ready to go do things, let them run, let them go. And because you do get a little older, maybe a little more stuck in your ways sometimes. And so let the young ones go. And like my wife says, when you were 30, you were ready to go slay the world too. I said, yeah. I said, now I think I want a little slower pace.
That's a perfect way to put it. I'd love to dive into just some numbers and stuff like that, and talk about, again, you have a very diverse operation. So first off, what's the thought process of being diverse? I think I know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear your take on it, because there's a lot of people that just have row crops or just have hogs or just have cattle, whereas you have a really impressive setup across all of them. Is that just so you can weather all the years, or is that just something you grew up around and that was something you were going to continue to do?
Well, a little bit of both of those. I mean, if you're diversified, at least you can weather the years. Usually something's making a little money in there somewhere. And, it depends on what people's interests are. If your kid doesn't like cattle, then don't go build a 10,000 head feedlot. That won't be a smart idea. But you got to find what you like to do. And, that's what we like to do. We like those different diversities in it. And so that's kind of what we always did. Keep it so that something hopefully makes money. Do what you want to get up in the morning and go do every day. And so that's kind of the reason we've always done that. But Dad was always a little diverse, and we've always been diversified. And the other thing we've always been is only strictly ag here. We never had, we were always just commodity ag. We never had anything else. I said, I would like to go farm around oil wells, but unfortunately there's no oil in this area.
There is not. There definitely is not. Tell me a little bit about the pigs. What do you do year over year? Is that something that's kind of consistently stayed at that particular number? And what number is that? And what's kind of the future look like there?
Yeah, the hogs have pretty much been there to say, Dad, he when they got married, he got 6 sows and a boar, and Dad, hogs kind of made him a lot of money through the years. And then in the early 90s there, when all of his boys, like my brother and me, were back, we built some new barns and stuff, and we haven't really built any barns since then, and we've just been patching and fixing. And but we're up to we run about 450 sows fair to finish. They do an F1 gilt replacement with a genetic company. So they sell a lot of their gilts for breeding stock. Actually, we weren't getting along. We still have some dirt lots a little bit and stuff. And they weren't getting along that good with some selling gilts. And then a few years ago, there was a big disease outbreak at all the big outfits. All their pigs got sick and died, and they wouldn't take them. And so they started having to buy our gilts. And then they all decided they liked the gilts, and I think some of them liked that they were running on some dirt. And so anyway, that kind of worked for that scenario. So now most of our gilts do get sold as breeding gilts to other breeders. And then our fat hogs are just, of course, marketed. And my brother's, his daughter and son kind of take care of that. And so I don't know. I don't think the hogs are expanding on the operation, but they haven't gone away.
Hey, like you said, if you find somebody that enjoys it and that's something you've always done, why not?
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your cow-calf operation and what that looks like today.
Well, the cow-calf operation, just, of course, commercial cows, kind of an Angus Semic-based cow. We are an all-spring calving herd. We split them for a while and ran some falls, but that just didn't quite work into our operation, so we're back into all spring calving. And, all of our home-raised stuff, we pretty much feed them out. We take them all the way through to finish. Pretty much feed everything at our place anymore. We really don't go out to custom lots much anymore. If we can run our own feed through them, we just feel it helps us more. And but they're just spring calving cows, calving right now as we're speaking. And then, like I say, we'll wean them in the fall, and they'll be starting to go to town as finished cattle next. Well, about August will be our first set that'll go.
Perfect. What's the feedlot look like today? Obviously, we're here and we get to see the new setup here. But what's total? I know you've mentioned several different spots. So how much are you feeding, and kind of where is that all in this general area?
Yes, it's all. We have one lot down south, about 20 miles there, on a place we bought down there by Walmigo. But like our capacity right now, if we run everything pretty full and run our grass traps and stuff, we can keep about 4,200 head of cattle around. And we pretty much buy and sell calves every week. We don't quite do it every week, but pretty much we're in the market every week. We'll buy 6,000 to 7,000 head of calves a year, plus what we raise.
Sure.
So,
well, that's awesome. It's a lot of steaks,
Yeah.
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I got it. I say eat beef, eat pork, just eat. Even chicken. Chicken guys need a little help too once in a while.
You don't want to rule them out.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the farming side and the row crop side, and kind of what that looks like today.
We're pretty much conventional. We a corn, soybean type rotation. We grow a little. Actually, we usually grow a fair amount of wheat. Brother kind of likes to plant wheat, and then we'll get it off a little bit early, put it in the bin, let it air dry, and then put double crop beans in behind it. But everything that we raise, as far as corn, we try to feed back through our livestock. And we do have bin space. My dad, he built an elevator leg in 1976. So we've always had our own bins. We haul very little to town till we sell it off, like beans and stuff, till we sell off the farm. So we've always been pretty self-sufficient on that. But, that's kind of what we do. We have our own feed mills. We grind all of our own feed. That's the other thing we do. We're pretty self-sufficient here. I used to tell people we pretty much got our horses shod and silage chopped, and after that we did it. But as we get more and more things going, we're hiring a little bit more done. But we've always been very self-sufficient here.
No, that's awesome. How'd you get into the sale barn, and where? So the funny backstory. We started. I bought into my father-in-law's cattle operation when his brother passed away. And so we only ever took ours down there on the Tuesday, and we didn't have very many. We had 30 probably at the most, cow calf, and so it was always this. We pulled the kids out of school the day we were going to go sell them, and it was a really cool thing. And so been going in there for a number of years. But when did you buy that, take that over? How did that whole piece come to be?
Well, the sale barn was actually owned by my cousins, and we've always sold cattle there. We bought cattle there, and Denny always asked me, which boy you sending down? And I asked my boys, I said, one of you want to go run the sale barn? And neither one of them exactly wanted to go run the sale barn. They liked what they were doing here. And so when Denny got kind of serious about selling it, I said, I don't think I got any boys that want to come down and run it. And I said, I wouldn't mind being a partner in it, though, if you found some young guy that wanted to run it and do it. Well, he kind of came back, and Spencer Jones and his family, he's young and ambitious and wants to run things, and it was a good opportunity for them, and they kind of needed a partner, so we agreed to partner up with them. So so far that we took it over 1st of September. It's worked very well so far, but part of the other thing about owning that sale barn is that I always said all we ever did was straight commodity ag here. We never did anything else. And I always told the boys, I think you need to jump out in. You look at a lot of these other bigger operations, they have something else going. They're doing something. It might be ag related, but it's not just straight selling a commodity product. So I thought this was a good opportunity to help service the ag community by having a sale barn, which there's a lot of different ways to market your livestock, but people in the seats bidding on your livestock sometimes is just a hard way to beat, I think. And so that's just one operation that we kind of bid into. We actually started another little real estate business with another young man. It's actually, he's actually my cousin's boy, and him and our youngest son are big buddies, and they kind of wanted to start this little real estate deal. So we started buying a few houses in Onega and have a little bit of a business there, and trying to help get things going there, and trying to help maybe give some people some affordable housing that's a little nicer, so that the boys have goals that they want to do. So these kids, like I say, they want to run, let them run. Try to keep things going so they can go do it.
Oh, it's awesome. And it's awesome to see that. Like I said, to allow them to do that, I think is just a huge piece. What's it like now being able to step back and see, for you and your brother, see the next generation really just taking charge and running with things? How cool is that to sit back and think about?
It's really very, very cool. And there's nothing I really enjoy more than when the boys are out there and the kids, and especially like Brandon calves, all the grandkids come out, and they're only 8 months right now, but they're out there giving shots, and Brandon's a big time, and there's nothing better than having your family with you out there, and so yeah, that's a very cool thing to have happen. But it also makes you start thinking about, okay, my boys are already talking, well, if my kids want to come back, what's this operation got to look like in another 15 or 20 years, and so it creates challenges too, but they're good challenges.
Oh, for sure. And it's really neat to think about. You and I were talking off camera. There's a lot of operations that don't have a next generation or any desire to have a next generation. And then you have to think about, well, what's that look like? And so it's cool to see that the family has interest in the next generation. And you're able to, again, make those memories. In my opinion, that's got to be the coolest thing ever. When we did that, our boys would come out, and then at the time when we were doing that a lot, we only had, I think, the one girl, the one wasn't born yet. And so they just thought it was the neatest thing in the world to be around grandpa and dad. And so I definitely can understand that feeling. What's the hardest part about being a farmer and a rancher that people probably don't think about outside of the industry?
I think outside of the industry, the thing that probably I think about the most, and I just wonders, is that people don't realize how much time and dedication we do to this industry, and how much we work. And people say, oh, they're not taking care of the land, they're not taking care of their livestock. And it's like, my gosh, Christmas morning, my kids didn't open presents because we went out and chored. Then we came in and opened presents, and things like that. So the disconnect from the people to realize how agriculture runs, and agriculture's big business. It just is. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of go, and things got to work right. You're just praying to God that it rains this week, because you're 1 week away from either chopping silage or picking corn, And so that kind of always makes me wonder, I like, probably podcasts like this, maybe somebody that's not in ag hears that and sees that. And I think most people, if they come out and never truly set a foot on a farm and see what farmers and ranchers do, they understand it. But when you're sitting in town and listening to the other side talk about how we're just ruining the world, and I always said, well, you step outside my door and you look out across the hills and the sky, it doesn't look too bad. You step out in the middle of downtown LA and the smog and the buildings, and you might think maybe this world's not so good, but there's a lot of good people in the world, and they just need to be educated, I think.
I think so. No, and that's honestly part of this. It's really weird. I dive into data. I love data, and I love seeing where people come from and how long they engage with the data. And so I would say 5 of the top 10 places that watch this are like Chicago, Dallas, cities, and consistently watching it. And so it's exciting to see that people that don't come from the country, or maybe they grew up, in a small town and now they live in the city.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot. We're just a small fish, right, in a big pond, trying to just raise awareness. That's all we do. Kev and everybody else that works for us, we enjoy what we get to do. Like these are exciting for us. But I think the really cool part is when you get somebody that says, I've always had this misconception about the feedlot industry, or always had misconceptions about the egg industry, right? Now I get to talk to somebody or listen to somebody talk. Maybe they aren't so bad. Maybe all I'm hearing is just the bad parts. Because there is bad parts. I'm not going to say there's not.
No, I'm not saying there's not either.
No.
And some days the feedlot doesn't look so good. People talk about confinement. I said, well, when the snow's blowing sideways out there and there's drifts everywhere, sometimes inside that warm building's not a bad place to be.
Sure.
And so there's good and bad, but 99% of the people I truly think out here in this business anymore, there's very few bad apples anymore.
No.
Because like I told the guy one day, do you go and slap your boss every day? And he goes, no, why? I said, well, if I don't take care of my livestock, that's just like me slapping my boss. And after a while, they say, we don't like you. We're not going to do it. And I said the same way. Your boss is going to fire you. And if you don't take care of your livestock and do things right, they won't. It will not be a profitable venture for yourself.
Oh, and the problem is now, like Keith on the last episode made an awesome point. He's like, these cost way too much money to not take care of them.
Yeah. Yeah, most people don't realize, you can't buy any kind of, right now, you can't buy hardly any kind of size animal. I mean, 400-pound calf off a fall cow right now is going to bring $1,850 at a minimum, probably. And if you start buying bigger cattle, you start buying 8-9 weight steers, they're costing $2,400 to $2,500. And, $2,000 don't buy you much in the world right now in the livestock. So every potload of cattle rolls into your place is $180,000. And, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that they're alive. And
that's right. You don't beat them up.
What's a piece of advice you would have for somebody that's wanting to come back and farm, and maybe you've got a great established operation, right? And maybe they want to come back, but maybe their operation isn't, sized enough right now. What would you say to somebody that wants to get back into agriculture but is kind of on the fence about it?
I think there's a lot of opportunities in agriculture, but you might have to look outside your comfort zone. You might have to do a little something that you don't exactly want to do right now. And I don't know if, maybe that's, maybe it is building a chicken barn. Maybe it's building a hog barn, or maybe it's, a lot of people like a cow-calf, but cow-calf takes a lot of ground, a lot of land. And like one young man, I said, well, why don't you, I said, you got some farmland? He said, yeah. I said, well, you can raise feed and chop silage. And said, yeah, oh, yeah. And I said, then put up 4 little pens, hold 100 head each. And I said, that's 400 head, turn it twice a year. That's 800 head. I said, if you make $150 a head on each one of them, you make a little bit and you can expand and then maybe do something. He goes, oh, I couldn't buy a calf. He was too scared to buy a calf. So there might be things like that you have to look at. You have to look at your land base, what you're going to be available. But there's a lot of things you can build the pens, and if you can get feed, you don't need thousands of acres. You can run thousands of cattle on a lot lower acres.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's so many. I think there's a ton of opportunity in agriculture. We get to work with companies all over the place. Last week we were with a dairy tech company in Michigan and Northeast Iowa, and they're growing like crazy. So I think there's opportunities to, maybe I want to get back to where we have a cow-calf operation, but I'm going to have a supplemental thing to get us there.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, I might have to go be an agronomist, or I might have to go run a rig for a little while at the local co-op.
Yep.
But I think there's so many different ways to get involved in agriculture. And I would say to the people that maybe don't come from an ag background, ag is much more welcoming than probably people perceive it to be.
Oh, definitely.
And so people are willing to hire people that just want to work.
I tell people, if you show up on time, you give them an honest effort and can pass the piss test, you'll go a long ways in the world anymore. And that's not just in agriculture, but people need to show up to work and give the man that you're working for, he doesn't give him that time to go show you what he can do and what you can do for him, and you'll go places. And agriculture is very, very forgiving on that. Being green doesn't matter as long as you're willing to learn and willing to work and do that, because agriculture is not a 40-hour-a-week job, and if that's what you want, you better not go to ag.
Yeah. What's some of the hardest, looking back, I'm sure like the 80s was difficult. What are some of the hardest things that you've had to go through as someone in the ag industry? Nobody likes talking about the hard times, or maybe people just don't talk about them.
I don't know. There was hard times. There were years we didn't make any money. But I don't know. That's just part of it. You don't worry about it much. Although I will tell you, 15 was pretty tough when you didn't get your first cost back on a lot of cattle. And my dad always says you're not going to get first cost back. And I never worried about it so much when they didn't cost so much. But now it's like, whew, yeah, in 15. And I think about that now in today's world. This deal, it could be bloody on this deal if these cattle all go south by $40 a hundred. And so anyway, I worry about that some. But tough times, they're just here. And if you can't handle the tough times, you probably better not be in this business either. Mental stress is something that people got to work on. Some people handle it better than others. And if you need that help, I'd say go get help. But it doesn't bother me so much. One of my neighbors asked me something. I said, well, if you can't go to bed at night and be a few $1 million in debt, then you don't want to be in this job. And that's just the way it is. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Oh, and it's crazy. And the cost, I think a lot of people don't understand. Cost of livestock right now is high, or cattle at least is high.
Oh, yeah.
But you look at the cost of equipment.
Oh, everything.
And the cost of land. I mean,
oh, yeah.
So it's kind of and it's really cool when we were talking earlier about, hey, we get land and we want to pay it off, and it's just this, like, that's your mentality, and we're going to make it happen, and that's awesome to see. But I think that sets us up for the future. What's the future have to look like, in your opinion, for the next generation and the next generation to be successful?
I think as it keeps going, I do believe operations are going to get larger. I mean, it's going to get larger. You're going to have to be, you can be as efficient as you want to be, but if you only got 100 acres, there's not enough efficiency there hardly, unless, but maybe you're on the edge of town and you can go be a vegetable, garden truck farmer and make things, there's things like that too. But as far as a production ag on any size, you're going to have some scale. And if you don't have enough scale, you're going to have the job in town to help do it, or your wife's going to have a job in town. And there's things that people need to look at, and people get too independent. But maybe if a couple of neighbors maybe if they go together, they could be more efficient and run some things, But that's a tough sell too. Trying to partner up with different people and stuff. But that, as we go forward, will be what will do. The technology in ag anymore, the way they, the feeding systems, everything has gotten so advanced. There's a lot of improvements. You can feed everything. It don't matter what species. You can feed them pretty darn efficient with the right equipment and the right technology. And some of that technology, you got to feed a lot of it to make it really cost effective for your place.
Sure. Do you have something that sticks out in your mind? We deal with a lot of ag tech, and it's obviously evolving every day. Is there one thing that stands out in your mind that was like, man, that was a super risky thing or a super expensive thing for us to buy into, but damn, has it paid big dividends off? Does anything stand out in your mind?
I don't know if any one thing necessarily stands out in our mind. Of course, all the farm equipment's got GPS on it, and everything. Of course, we're running, we don't use batch sheets anymore at the feedlot and stuff. So, there's different technologies. I don't know if there's one specific one. It's just we try to stay somewhat on the cutting edge, We bought us a drone to spray with last year and stuff, just because we figured that out a little more. Drones are a little touchier than I thought they'd be. Need bigger batteries.
They are. They're real touchy.
So I don't know if there's one specific thing, but, one guy asked me one time, well, why would you spend so much on technology? And I said, anything you can do to make technology, if it'll work and you don't have to have an employee, I said, it's cost effective, in these dairies and stuff, these autonomous feed trucks, they get them down. I'm going to look at them pretty serious, because feed truck drivers got to sit there and just drive every day. So if you can just set the truck up and let it drive and go dump the feed in the trucks, it would be I can see where that could be a very cost effective type item. So there's different things coming, and just going to have to see what's out there.
No, that's awesome. And I think that's a great way to end. I think technology is such a ever evolving. Like it's even wild. Some of the companies that we've worked with, I started working with 2 or 3 years ago, and what they've even done in 2 or 3 years is just crazy. So the autonomous feed truck, can't imagine we're very far off of it.
They've got demos out there. They're working on it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, what is it? Vermeer's got that autonomous where it'll go get the bales and bring it back and stack them. Yep. I remember seeing that like 2 years ago at a farm show. I was like, man, they're just
autonomous grain carts and
you just think about efficiencies and labor savings, and labor's hard to find.
That's it.
And if you can, instead of having somebody in a feed truck all day, having them do something else that, I think it'd be money well spent. But again, it's got to get there where it makes sense.
Yes.
Right now. But no, anything else you want to talk about? I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
No, we appreciate it. We've been really blessed here. We're lucky to have our families back with us, and like I say, ag's been very good to us. Can't complain about it at all. Although some days my wife says maybe we ought to slow down, but I said, what are you going to do then? So no, we just enjoy this lifestyle, and we enjoy what we're doing, and like I say, hopefully the world appreciates the farmers and ranchers that go to work every day.
For sure. No, I think that's a great way to end. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching. Again, thank you so much to you and your family for allowing us to come here. Make sure to like, subscribe, give farmers and ranchers a chance if you haven't. Everybody likes to eat. Everybody eats every day, right? I don't care what you eat, but you eat. And we're just trying to tell the stories of the people that put food on the plate in some way, shape, or form. So thank y'all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.